Welcome back to the channel. This is where we look at my table tennis, my progress, everything that I do to try and improve. I'm kind of like a local league table tennis player. I've started to play a little bit more nationally now, play national tournaments, senior British league, and yeah, I'm just trying to do everything that I can to try and get better, try and progress from sort of more like an intermediate level to a more advanced level. Obviously I like to share my matches, my training, my tournaments, everything that I do to try and improve basically, and hopefully if it's helping me to improve, then it will help you guys to improve as well. So this is going to be episode 3 in the series that I've entitled The Importance Of. I hope that you've enjoyed the first two. First one was letting go of the fear of missing, second one was accepting the delay in the transition from practice to matches. So this is going to be the next episode in the series, and we're going to be kind of looking at all different sorts of things. We're going to be looking at technique, looking at the more mental aspects, and this is something that I've been asked about a few times myself actually, so I thought that I'd sort of share my ideas and my thoughts and my feelings. And it's so it's basically, this is going to be the importance of dealing with match nerves. So it's kind of like, it's a bit of an interesting sort of topic. There's something that I feel like I've actually got some quite good stuff to share with you. There's lots and lots of stuff that's out on the internet, advice as to how to deal with nerves when it comes to sports, when you've got an important performance, when you've got an important match. So there's lots and lots of different things. So I'm not going to obviously try and go through like absolutely everything that I can think of. I'm going to pick out 2 or 3 sort of important things that I've learned from my recent experiences and over the last few years. Also, advice that other people have given to me as well. And hopefully you'll be able to take some of this stuff away, and it will help you to to kind of like deal with any sort of like anxiety that you may have when you've got an important match. If you've got any sort of nerves, any fears when you're playing in like an important tournament or anything like that. So hopefully this will help you. I think the most important thing to realise is that obviously we are playing table tennis. We're all human beings. Human beings have obviously there's there are natural thoughts and feelings that humans have, and there are things that you can control, the things that you can't control. And obviously the way that we've evolved as a species over the last however many thousands, hundreds and thousands of years, one of the most important things is the ability to survive and having that instinct survival. And part of that is obviously the fight or flight response, and obviously with that comes adrenaline. So the idea, of course, behind that is that you are faced in a situation that you perceive to be threatening, that you perceive to be sort of fearful, and your body produces adrenaline because of the fact that it's getting you ready to either run away from it or to stand up and to fight it. So that's how we've survived, against all sorts of different creatures over the years. Like our ancestors, that's how they've managed to keep safe. That's how they've managed to still be here today. So obviously I suppose the thing is, in this sort of like modern society, there are probably less and less instances where you actually need that fight or flight response. But obviously it's part of a natural instinct, and you can't help it. It's going to happen. So I think one of the main things that I would say initially is to kind of realise that it is a perfectly natural response, and that if you are playing in something that's important, that means a lot to you, you probably are going to feel a little bit nervous. And if anything, it would probably be a little bit weird if you didn't feel that way. What you have to do is you've got to realise as well that if you're in that kind of a situation where you do feel nervous, then chances are that your opponent or your opponents also feel that way. I think that if you can, kind of realise that, and kind of identify that that is actually happening, and that is a likely thing that your opponent is probably going to be nervous as well, I think that can really, really help you. I think it can help you to kind of relax a little bit. I think it can help you to focus a little bit more on what you're doing and not be too worried about the way that you're feeling in yourself. So yeah, so I think that this is one of the key things really, is just to as an initial step, when you are starting to feel a little bit nervous, you're starting to feel a little bit tight, you can just sort of say to yourself, well, do you know what, yeah, I probably am going to feel like this in this kind of a situation. It's not unusual, it's not a strange kind of response, it is perfectly normal, and almost any other human being in that situation, especially when they really care about the outcome, they probably are going to feel a little bit nervous. So I think that is the first thing to to really kind of like identify and accept. So I think that when you are in a situation where you're feeling the adrenaline, you're feeling nervous, you're feeling a little bit tight. I mean, I think one of the main things that I would definitely recommend, that is obviously something that you can do to help you kind of relax, is to take some deep breaths. I think one of the best ways to kind of describe it is to, however long you inhale for, you exhale for twice as long. So if you inhale for 2 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds. And again, that can just really help to sort of pushing the breath out of your chest, can just help all of your muscles and everything to relax. So if you can maybe try and do that just a few times when you are in that situation where you may be coming up to the table, you're getting ready to go, some deep breaths in and out, but trying to take the breaths in for however long, do double the length of time for you to exhale. I think that'll be really, really beneficial. The other thing as well that you can do actually is to try and sort of like tense your muscles. So really, really like tense your shoulders, tense your arms, tense your hands. Really, really tense it and try and hold that just for a couple of seconds and then release it. And again, that can actually help to just help to relax you and just to try and feel a little bit more calm. Me personally, I would say that it's always something that I've kind of experienced over the years. Like I was saying, it's a perfectly natural thing to do. But, I always tend to feel a little bit tight, perhaps a little bit nervous. Not so much in tournaments, I must admit. I tend to feel quite relaxed, but I would say the first match in a tournament, certainly maybe the first game of the first match in a tournament, I maybe might feel a little bit nervous. But I would definitely say in league matches, when there's probably a little bit more pressure, because of the fact that you're not only competing for yourself, but you're competing for your teammates as well. So I would say that the first match I generally find quite difficult in terms of feeling tense and feeling a little bit nervous. But again, one of the ways around that initially is that I'll say to myself, well, again, I'm going to feel like that's today, or almost certainly feeling exactly the same way. But I mean, what I would say that like the last week or so for me has been quite sort of like pressurised in terms of the table tennis. So last week I competed on the Tuesday night in Warrington finals night. On the Wednesday night we had a Trafford League match where we needed to get some points out of that to make sure that we didn't get relegated. And then on the Thursday night we had a cup final in Trafford, where I knew that a lot of the people from our club were going to be coming to support us. So yeah, it was just one of those that, I think just one of those on their own, would bring with it a little bit of pressure. But, the fact that I actually had 3 of those, one after the other, it didn't make for a particularly easy week. And I do remember initially, I can quite clearly remember thinking to myself that, I think it was on like the Monday, that I was like, I'm going to be quite looking forward to by the time we get to the end of the week, because like that, at least that pressure will have eased off. But then I sort of said to myself, well, do you know what? Actually, no, I don't want to be wishing this away. I'm actually, I'm in these situations because I've helped to create that myself. obviously the relegation match wasn't ideal, but the Warrington finals night and the cup final night, I'd created that because of or had been part of a team that had helped to create that, because of the good table tennis that we played. So I sort of reminded myself initially, well, don't be just trying to wish this away. Actually, like enjoy it. Don't be wanting it to be over. Kind of relish what you're doing. So that I'll kind of come on to that a little bit more, because that's going to be one of the main things that I want to sort of discuss. But I think what I said to myself initially, as a way to kind of deal with the nerves and the anxieties that I had, because one of the things that kind of kept cropping into my mind, especially for the Warrington finals nights, is that I'd run through the scenario in my head of how that night would play out. I was in the open singles semi-final, and I was in the vets final. So I'd run through various different scenarios of how the night would play out, and the one thing that I did not envisage is actually what ended up happening, which is where I won the main open singles. I unfortunately lost the Vets final, but I won the main singles, and I was absolutely delighted with that. But that did not enter my head one little bit. But the main things that I kept thinking about was I was just really thinking, like, you know, I hope with people coming down to watch me that I can, you know, perform to somewhere near the ability that I know that I've got. And of course, I kept thinking, well, I hope that I don't play terrible, and I hope I don't embarrass myself in front of everybody, which is obviously quite a negative mindset to have, but it's just one of those things that sometimes you can't help but think that. The way that I tried to deal with that initially was to just sort of say to myself, I only need to worry about what I can actually control during the night. So obviously I can't control what my opponent does. I can't control if he gets a net or an edge, or if I get a net and it goes off, or I hit, sometimes maybe hit a bad shot, or he forces me into an error, or anything like that. There's so many different things that I can't control, but the one thing that I could control is my attitude and the way that I responded to setbacks. So this for me, I mean, it's some comments that I get quite a lot on my matches, that I need to probably keep my emotions a little bit more in check. Yes, I do agree with that to an extent, but I think for me personally, I sometimes need to let my emotions out. If I was to totally play completely placidly, I'd kind of lose a little bit of the fire and a little bit of like the motivation that I have in playing in these matches. So there's an element that is just part of my personality, really. So I was trying to be like Roger Federer and I just didn't respond to anything. I think it would actually be to the detriment of my game rather than to kind of help me along. But I think that I can control it better. But the main thing that I tried to say to myself really was that, yes, I'm in a very, very fortunate position here to have gotten to these, I've gotten to finals, like, 'cause there's a lot of people that would want to be in my situation. But the main thing that I can do is I can stay focused, I can concentrate, stick to my game plan, and I can try and control my emotions and try and control my attitude. And one of the main things, again, tried to say to myself was to try and avoid the negative body language, which does kind of creep into my game. I can get a little bit like, oh, what's the point? And oh, the world's against me, all these nets and everything like that. So I really tried to say that to myself, and that really did help me, because all of a sudden I could stop, worrying about, what if he plays better than me? What if he hits a great shot? What if he does this? Because all of a sudden it was like, well, I'm not too worried about that. All I'm really kind of worried about at this, going into it, is that I'm just going to try and control the things that I'm capable of controlling, and all those things that I can't control, I'm just going to let that go. One of the most important things that you can do to try and to help control your nerves, try and sort of like turn those nerves into a positive force, is to really sort of say to yourself, when you are in that situation, when you feel like you're under pressure and you feel like you're nervous, whether that's at the start of a match, whether it's coming up to an important part of the match or an important part of the night, whatever it may be, and you're starting to feel nervous and you're starting to feel the adrenaline and the butterflies, I think that you actually need to start saying to yourself, like, this is what I want, this is what I've trained for, this is how I want to feel, as opposed to, because of course your initial reaction is, oh, I don't want to feel like this, try and relax, try not to feel nervous. You're always focusing so hard on not feeling like that you can always distract you from what you're actually trying to do. I think it's really, really important to actually realise that you can play sport well and you can play table tennis well when you're feeling nervous. So don't be scared of that. Don't be scared of the adrenaline. You've got to say to yourself that if you've got adrenaline flowing through your veins, then it means that you're at a slightly higher state of alertness than you would be normally. So use that to your advantage. Say to yourself, well, do you know what? This is how I want to be. This is where I want to be. I'm in that situation that I want to be in. Again, one of the most interesting things that I remember reading quite some time ago was about Jack Nicklaus, who is obviously one of the greatest golfers of all time. He's won the most amount of major championships in golf, and he's also finished second, I think, more than anybody else as well. So he's had a huge amount of experience of winning, but he's also had a huge amount of experience of finishing runner-up and not quite getting over the line. And golf is a very, very difficult sport from a mental perspective. It is completely different to table tennis in terms of you have a lot of time to think in golf. You're not reacting to anything. It's like the ball is there, it doesn't move. And it is, from a mental perspective, it's very, very difficult. And to win a tournament, especially that's been played like for professionals over 3 or 4 days, to be able to kind of get yourself into that position to be able to win it and then to finish it off is just absolutely, it's difficult to kind of convey that really, unless you've actually played the sport. But I think there's so much that you can learn from that you can apply to table tennis as well. And so Jack Nicklaus, he said that whenever he got to the back nine in the final round of a major tournament, or when it was the last few holes, or when it was a real pressure situation, and he felt the adrenaline, he was kind of like what I just described, that he was like, yes, this is how I want to feel. This is what I've put all these hours of practice in for. This is what I've spent my whole life working towards. This is where I want to be. I want to feel like this because I'm in exactly the position that I want to be, where I've got a chance now to win a tournament, to win a major tournament. And I think that's just such a fantastic way of thinking about it. It's almost kind of like it's totally changing your mindset and your perception and your attitude towards feeling nervous. So I would highly recommend that. Like I say, so the next time you're in that situation, say to yourself, yes, this is how I want to feel. I want to feel like this, rather than trying to keep saying to yourself, don't feel like this, relax. Say to yourself, well, actually, yeah, I want to feel like this, I want to be this way. The final thing that I'm going to say in this video, like I say, I'm not going to go on because there are obviously loads and loads of different strategies, and you can obviously look up. There's plenty of stuff on the internet that you can look up. If you want, to go into a little bit more depth. Like I said, this video is really just about kind of like passing on some of the things that have helped me directly. But the final thing that I would say is that it's probably quite a good idea to, and this is obviously one of the things that I've been able to kind of analyse myself because I film most of my matches. But try and identify what are your traits when you're under pressure, when you're feeling nervous. Maybe so if you don't film your matches, then you can maybe just think back to maybe an important match that you've ended up losing when you thought you might have won it, or it's been just a situation where you've been under a little bit of pressure and you don't feel like you've performed as well as you'd like to have done. Just think back to like, well, what went wrong? What did you do? What are your tendencies under pressure? So obviously it's going to be different for everybody, but for me personally, there's a few things that I definitely notice that I do. First of all, I get very heavy in terms of my footwork. Now, I know for a fact that my footwork is not great, and my footwork is pretty heavy anyway. It's something that I'm going to be working at really, really hard this summer to try and improve. But I would say that it gets worse, again, if I've got the adrenaline flowing and I'm feeling a little bit nervous and I'm not particularly confident for whatever reason. I don't move very well. I'm a little bit, play the shot and then I'm stood there like wondering what's going to happen, rather than playing the shot and then moving and getting in position. So that's one of the things that I identify. Another kind of thing that I definitely notice happens is that my acceleration when I'm playing a shot. So I always like to think of like there's a real kind of like snap when you're playing either a forehand or a backhand or a flick or a push or whatever it may be. And when I'm starting to feel a little bit nervous, that snap of acceleration just gets a little bit sluggish. It's not quite the same because there's probably an element of, again, probably don't want to miss a shot. I want to make sure I get the shot on the table. So again, in practice, when I'm not worried about that too much, I'm really going for the shots. In a tight situation, I'm perhaps getting a little bit too careful at times. So I'm still generally trying to play the shots, but I'm just not quite going for them in the same way. So that's something that I'm very, very aware of. And then the final thing for me as well is that I tend to find my serves get a little bit, just get a bit ragged, a little bit untidy. So they start to get, perhaps drift a little bit long, or if I'm trying to serve long, they're not long enough. They can get a little bit high. I do notice sometimes that I'm not quite contacting the ball on the bat in the same place, because that's something I try to really think about generally when I'm serving, is that I want if it's like backspin chop, I want the ball to contact the front part of the bat. If I'm trying to do flow, I want to contact the back of the bat, and I find that that gets a little bit ragged. So those are probably like the three things. So what I try to do when I realise I'm in that situation, that kind of comes into my mind, and I try to almost over exaggerate the tendencies to try and compensate for the fact that I'm not going to do them very well. So for example, I really try to bounce up and down, and especially like in between points or in between games, if I feel like my footwork's getting heavy, I'll really try to bounce up and down, and I'll move and almost overdo it, just to trying to push it further than what I would normally do, to try and then kind of and that will hopefully, the fact that I'm a bit nervous and stuff and this slowing me down a little bit, the fact that I'm trying to do it more means I actually get back to more where I would normally do it. I would say in terms of the acceleration, again, I just try to remind myself, go for your shots. Really, if anything, if you're going to do, say, especially like, say, for me, my backhand open-ups, I'd rather put them off the end of the table than put them in the net. So that just really focuses me on really accelerating and snapping through it. And again, I'll probably try and rehearse that a little bit in between points, or in between, really get that feeling of like my arm snapping through it as fast as I possibly can on both sides. And then with my serves, I really try to, again, really start to try and get out of, if I feel like my technique's a little bit ragged and I'm not quite able to kind of control the bat, just because I'm a little bit nervous and I'm not quite controlling the bat as well as I can do. Again, I try to sort of like really focus on what's going to make the serve good. And, if I feel like I can't quite get as much spin on the serves, then I'll just really focus on keeping the ball low, keeping the ball short, keeping it tight, and not worry too much about trying to put, say, lots and lots of spin on the ball. If I feel like because I'm nervous, I can't quite get that contact point. If anything, you're better off serving like low and short and tight with very little spin on it than you are putting lots of spin on it, but it, getting a little bit high and getting a little bit too long. So so they're kind of, those are, some of the things that, and again, this really does help me. So if you can try to identify when you're under pressure, what the tendencies are, what the bad traits are, why you feel like you've maybe lost a tight match, and then the next time that you're in that situation, you can say to yourself, okay, so I'm feeling like this is what's happened last time, so I'll make sure that I'll compensate for that, or I'll do something a little bit different just to allow for that. Okay, so I hope that this has all helped you. Like I say, there's so many different things that you can kind of work on, but I mean, I think, really to sort of like summarize, obviously, the breathing, to sort of like tense your body and then kind of help, relax it. That can, as a first and foremost, help your body to relax just a little bit. Obviously, just realize that it's a perfectly normal, natural thing to feel nervous in those kind of situations, because it's a situation that you care about. Other people will probably feel that same way too. Identify the traits that you feel, if there's certain things that you feel like you do, that you don't accelerate properly, you don't use your body enough, you don't move well enough, whatever that may be, have that in your mind when you feel under pressure, and then try and make sure that you focus on that, almost over exaggerate it to try and kind of get yourself back into a normal kind of flow. But I think for me, probably the biggest thing that has definitely helped me, and hopefully will help you guys too, is to say to yourself, when you feel nervous, you feel anxious, that like, actually, yes, this is how I want to feel. So it's changing the mindset. It's like something like cognitive behavioural therapy, where you're changing your perception. So rather than thinking, oh, I feel nervous, I can't play, you can play well when you feel nervous. You can do. You've just got to kind of believe in that, and you've got to really like relish it. Like, you're in a situation here that you really care about and that you want to do well. So, just really enjoy the moment and use that adrenaline to your advantage. And just like I say, just enjoy it. I mean, at the end of the day, I think for, certainly the level that I'm playing at, I would imagine for the majority of you guys out there, I mean, hopefully there's some people that are watching this that maybe play at a slightly higher level, but at the end of the day, it's sport, and we want to do well at it, but it's not the be-all and end-all for us. There's a lot more important things out there. So don't be too hard on yourself. You know, like I said, just enjoy it, and yeah, hopefully, you know, put all these things kind of together, and it should really help you to, you know, to start to deal with the matched nerves a little bit better. Okay, thanks ever so much for watching, guys. You know, please keep keep watching the videos. I really do appreciate everybody that is that's supporting the channel. I hope you enjoy, you know, all the content I've been putting out. I've got lots and lots of ideas. We're at the end of the table tennis season now. There's going to be lots of tournaments, so I'm going to try and do plenty of match vlogs. This summer is all going to be about training and trying to improve. So I'm going to keep bringing out, you know, videos on training and tactics. I'm going to keep doing these importance of videos. So hopefully that will help you. And I'll see you again soon.